Five, four, three. All right, well, I guess we're live tonight talking motorbikes. I got the Superbike genius on himself, Richard Stanboli from the fresh and lean, progressive Yamaha racing team presented by Attack Performance.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, that's a mouthful again. It's only been in several years, so I should get it by now. But yeah,
Well, it's only been
our,
2 years. This is the
yeah,
second year
yeah,
of
it's the second
progressive.
year of this one, right?
Yeah,
Like we added progressive last year, right?
yeah, yeah.
But I like your shirt, dude. We must be shopping at the same store.
You got a
No?
T-shirt, don't you?
No,
No?
dude, I got the collar, man.
Oh
Collar.
yeah, you got the travel shirt too.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
sir. The fancy one with the block on the back.
Oh yeah, I got one of those too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you gave this one to me, so there you go. All right, so you just came off the Barber weekend. Jake Gagne back to doing Jake Gagne shit, right?
Yeah, so kind of knew Barber was going to go our direction before we went there, and a lot of people, I guess, a lot of people were betting on Cam Bobier for the win on that guy, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, after Road Atlanta, I mean, the word on the street was it was time to retire the R1 and get something else, kind of.
Yeah, I mean the BMW, or maybe a Tiger, I don't know, Leopard, something like that. I mean, it's fast, it's strong, it's powerful, but it can't really seem to go around corners as good as the Yamaha. Yamaha is much more nimble, much more precise, let's say, and handles better, accelerates better, all that kind of good stuff. Just an
Yeah.
overall better bike. Well, package is better. But
Right.
you get to a track which is stop and go like Road Atlanta, and then they have a fighting chance, basically, especially with a good rider like Cameron.
Yeah. I mean, from the word go, I mean, every practice session, qualifying, whatever, Jake pretty much had everybody covered in a big way, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jake and Cameron were, Cameron Peterson, they were both pretty much 1-2, right? I mean, with
Yeah.
the exception of a couple of sessions,
Yeah.
or I think morning warm up, I think we were on used up, the way the tires are now, we get 14 tires, so we're a couple tires less than we were last year, so you have to be careful of what you use.
Yeah.
And so we used a couple more tires on Cameron's side just to get him a good grid position. Then we didn't have any new tires for warm up. So that was the one session where he didn't end up all too good, but he was right there with Jake pretty much the whole weekend.
So I believe they were saying that Jake broke the lap record both days, right? Is that mis- the race lap record?
Uh, the race lap record,
Right.
yeah, but not the actual lap record, I
Yeah, the lap
guess.
record's like a 22:0 or something, right?
Yeah, almost a 21.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was in Q last year, right? I think.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, something up with the new tires. They're finicky as
Really?
far as the track temperature goes. Yeah, so the first day we didn't even know if they were going to have a tire that would go. I mean, the BMW guys were having the same thing. So, we put a tire on it. Four or five laps later, the thing was cold tearing, and the clouds were out. It drizzled a little bit, so it was a little bit cooler that day, but nothing ridiculous, nothing that we haven't done at other tracks before. I
Right.
think 1C, and they're still tearing up the tires. And luckily, the on race day, the sun came out for a little bit, and then the track temp got all the way up to 40, and then we knew that the soft tire would go. The softer the two options really, and
Yeah.
so we went with that. Most of the paddock went with that, and then I think Cam Bobier went with the R5. So he was kind of didn't have the laps in the beginning, and he was coming on strong at the end. I think the second day he went with the R3 as well.
Right. Right. So, Jake didn't do his normal, disappearing act the first race. I mean, he only got out about 2 seconds and just kind of held it there, right?
Yeah, I mean Cameron Peterson, that is. There's two Camerons now.
Right.
He was within two, 1.7
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
We kind of
1.6.
chased him
Yeah.
down at the end. Yeah, we just didn't have the pace right in the beginning,
Right.
and that was something he was working on, and just didn't do it in race one. And so yeah, then they had a pretty good distance back to Skoltz, and Skoltz had some distance to Bobier, and I think it was Escalante after that, and then
Yeah.
Who was next in the
PJ.
running order?
PJ.
PJ, and then Heron.
Heron was sixth or seventh, I forget.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean, the thing is, it was weird because after the first couple of laps, when Jake kind of got away, and it seemed like there was Campy was all by himself, Schulte was all by himself, you know, however many seconds back or whatever, and then was it PJ? No, PJ was fifth, so it must have been Bobier by himself. So they didn't really show anybody. I mean, they showed PJ going by Heron and I forget who he was battling with, but they showed him going by. But most of the race they showed sixth and seventh place the whole time. I was just like, dude.
yeah, I was kind of procession first day. I think what happened was the tires
Yeah.
lasting. They shortened the race too, so that of course, Dunlop didn't want to shorten the race. It doesn't look good for them.
Right.
But at the end, I think they had to because it was so iffy, and the tires were getting shredded pretty bad. So when they
Yeah.
cut Jake's tire and analyzed the wear for the amount of laps and the accelerated wear you get when you get down near the cords, they didn't think the tire would go at that rate all the way down. But then when the temperature came up later in the day, then the tire was able to survive. Tires are kind of interesting thing. Some tires work cold and some on colder weather, and other tires work only when it's a certain temperature range. And it seems as though, at least for that track, that R3 just needed a certain temperature range, somewhere around 38 to 45 C or something like that,
Okay.
for it to really work. And it's kind of a small window, but that's about where we're talking about Celsius of the track surface,
Right.
not it would all be cooking if it was like 40 something out there.
Right.
But yeah, that'd be like Ridge. I think Ridge or something stupid like crazy, like 40C or something.
Feel
But
like
anyway,
Willow Springs in July.
yeah, something nutty. But anyway, so yeah, so the tire it became a kind of a little bit of a challenge as far as the rubber goes, and we spent quite a bit of time with our capot warmers. Adjusting and making sure our TPMS sensors were up and running so we can see where we were on the racetrack versus where we were out of the box, the hot box that is. So we have a tire warmer, basically a containment, and we can warm the tires and look at where the temperature is on the inside of the tire and see and try to match it to what we see on the racetrack.
Right.
So typically what happens with tires is the guys will roll out, you'll warm them up, the guys will roll out and they'll lose some pressure in the first 2 or 3 laps. Like the parade lap or what do they call it, parade lap, sighting lap.
Sighting lap, yeah.
Yeah, sighting lap, warm-up lap, they don't call it parade lap anymore. But the sighting lap and warm-up lap, and you put them on the warmer on the grid, they don't ever seem to get fully where they need to be for a really fast opening lap. And so they'll fall off. Like for instance, that race 1, I think it took Jake's front tire about 8 laps before it came up to a stable pressure temperature.
Wow.
Yeah, so for the first that many laps, the tire keeps getting hotter internally, hotter, and the pressure keeps rising slowly in the front. The rear comes up a little bit faster, and it gets a little stable faster because you're using it more. Especially a track like Barber, where you're on the edge of the tire a lot, you're kind of biased rear there. You don't brake that hard, and you get back on the rear tire pretty quick. That's why there's so much wear on the rear tire. The other be pretty good, but the rears were definitely getting worn fast and be really careful. So I think that's the reason why they had kind of a procession the first day. I think everyone was kind of worried about cooking their tires. Jake for sure, I think, was managing his. He got out there and he just kind of hung out, waiting for making sure they didn't use too much rubber.
I mean, it looked like he was just watching the pit board. He's like, okay, I got 2 seconds. We're just going to do what we got to do.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron was reeling them in towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
He would have to pass him still, but he was getting a little closer. If it went to full 20 instead of 16, who knows what would happen in the last 3 or 4 laps. You start getting pretty close.
Yeah, and so, pretty impressive 1, 2, 3 finish, right? Because the Westby team is also supported by Attack Performance, right? So,
yeah. We help them out with obviously our product. They use our clamps and foot controls and stuff like that. And then we help them out with some technology whenever they get stuck with their electronics, they need some help, a little pointing in the right direction. We're open doors as far as that goes, and give them some information so they can get their guy a little happier on the bike. And it seems like they were pretty happy. They
Yeah.
did their first 2 rounds. They've been going good the first couple rounds, right?
Yeah.
And they'll just see if it continues, because they always have at least Matt has this history of coming on strong and then having a little bit of a lull in the middle and then coming on strong again. So if they can avoid
Yeah.
that, I think they could be there in the championship all the way to the end.
Yeah, they definitely look strong. I mean, their lap times right there. I think was it in qualifying? It was like wasn't it him and our guys the only guys in the 22s?
They just pop the 22 and they put that Q tire on.
Right.
But yeah, 3 Yamahas with 22 just comes to show you how good that Yamaha is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so race two, they went back to the 20 because of the temperature, right? Is that
I'm sorry, say that again.
race two? They went back to the 20 laps thing. Yeah, they.
Yeah, so what happened was in race one, did the full 16 laps,
Yeah.
not the full distance, 4 laps shy, and then they were able to cut Jake's tire apart and Cam's tire apart, the top 3 guys type thing, and see what the wear was like. And like, yeah, the tire will make it. And then the second day, it was supposed to be a little bit hotter.
Right.
And so the sun was out a little bit more, and the track did come up a little bit more.
Yeah.
First day, it was a little hotter. And so the track temp was up maybe 1 or 2 C. It wasn't a lot hotter, but it was a little bit hotter.
Right.
And so, yeah, we didn't have any worries about the tires making the distance. It's getting a little bit greasy from the heat.
So, what do you think it is about Jake that allows him to, no matter what, somehow he gets a jackrabbit start every time, and then just bolts? Like, what are you seeing as a rider about him that allows him
It's
to do
mainly
that?
all in the acceleration.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really comfortable with electronic motorcycle. This is his, what, 4th year on the bike?
Yeah.
So he knows the bike inside and out. I mean, you put something on the bike, he'll tell you exactly, yeah, that kind of feels good, that doesn't feel good. So he knows his motorcycle really, really well, where guys like Cameron Bobby, they're learning the bike.
Right.
Cameron Peterson's only his 2nd year on the bike. So, I mean, the Skoltz has been on the bike a number of years, more than Jake has.
Right.
So I guess that throws that argument out a little bit, but we've been able to get Jake comfortable on that bike. The first year, it was a miserable year for him, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, he miserable finishing second all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes second.
Perspective is a bitch, right? But
I mean, he burnt up some clutches. I mean, he was doing some odd stuff on the bike. Then
rear brake rotors, right?
yeah, just all kinds of stuff that he was doing
Yeah.
that was slowing the bike down. Now we've jumped past all that. He's got it pretty dialed. He's comfortable with the team. Marshall does a good job. John does a good job. They all communicate well together. So it's the whole package, that gives him the confidence to just jump out and go. And he kind of understands what the tires are going to do. We spend a lot of time with, the tires cool off this much, so you better put in a certain lap. That's one of the things I think a lot of guys don't do well, is they don't jump out and go hard from the beginning. They don't have that pace in their head. They have to warm into it.
Right.
And along with that, like we said, it takes 8 laps for the front tire to come up to stable. It takes like 5 laps, even with that heat, for the rear tire to come up stable. And so, the slower they are out of the gate, the longer it takes
Right.
for the tire to get there. And so maybe the bike feels like crap to them because they're not going hard enough in the first opening laps. And so they sit there and go, man, it doesn't feel great. And then everything's starting they find their rhythm. You hear the guys, oh, I found my rhythm.
Yeah.
Some of that is, hey, they took too long to get the tires up to town.
Okay.
Those motor DP guys, they don't waste any time. But you start getting down the professionalism to our level,
right.
From there down the professional ladder, and it takes guys a few more laps to get going.
Well, with Jake, it's also I've been having Ken Hill on the podcast as well, and Ken has this whole thing like practice like you race, and Jake definitely lives by that because I mean within the first 3 laps he's already basically murdered everybody, right?
Yeah.
And he does that every weekend, every track. So I mean, there's I guess to elaborate on what I was saying before, like how the fuck does he do that? Right? Like how does he
Yeah,
do that, dude?
it's a certain mentality, and a lot of it comes with trust.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So race 2, Jake goes and does what he does. Cam was right there with him on the opening lap, and then he tossed it. Like it looked
Yeah.
like it was like a easy low side, maybe broke a clip on or something.
No, it did quite a bit of damage to the bike. You'd be surprised. I was really
Really?
surprised myself when he came in because I thought he was going to pick it up and go. Because the last year he crashed behind Jake too, and that was a pretty good clip. He tossed
Yeah.
him two off the front, and he skidded off into the grass, picked up the bike, and finished. I can't remember, seventh or something, sixth or
Right.
seventh, somewhere in the points. And what happened was his mentality was, I got to go with Jake. I got to go with Jake.
Right.
The opening lap's got to be strong. And he was right there in turn five, like right on his butt, basically. And he didn't know how close the other guys were, which, if you watch our bikes, Ridge last year or even the year before, when the opening laps, our bikes are really strong. They have the grip, they have the acceleration, they have all that. So they can jump out pretty. And so he didn't realize he had a gap to the guys behind him, and so he
Oh,
tightened the line. He was inside of Jake, looking on the inside, and then he held his line on the inside. He didn't let it drift out, thinking somebody
okay.
was underneath him. And then, of course, he just rolled the bike over too much on the side and just spun around, lost
Right.
the rear. When the thing spun around, lost the rear, the foot peg dug into the asphalt, and it pulled the foot peg forward and bent the foot peg bracket, and it took the foot control too. And because that thing folds back, it doesn't fold forward, right?
Right.
The pedal. And so it took that and bent it, and it bent the shift sensor and the shift rod, and so it just did quite a bit of damage on that side. And so it took a while for us to get back on the track again. So unfortunately, it was just too much damage. Probably should have let him sit out at that point because I think he was already 4 or 5 laps out by the time he got
Right.
going again.
Yeah, so I mean, when he got going, he was going right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
right to the 23s, yeah,
yeah.
high 23s, low 24s. He was there with Cameron and yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda. If he didn't fall over, he would have been behind Jake. Probably a remake of Race One, I
Right.
would think. Jake was again putting down some good laps. He did some 22s and a string of 23s, just a bunch of them almost halfway
Yeah.
until he had that moment.
Yeah, actually, I think I have the lap chart here. Like he was doing
Yeah,
23s all the way till lap 11. And
yeah,
then low 24s and then he had all of a sudden he had a 25.3 on lap 15 and
yeah.
I suspect that's what Jake was talking about on the podium.
Yeah, he in that G out section, he gave it a little more throttle than the previous lap coming down the hill,
Yeah.
and it spooled up a bit and it hit that G out section. And the thing went totally sideways, and traction control saved his butt, but he went sailing off the inside of the track and ran over the grass in the back again. So that cost him a second, but that was a near single person incident.
Yeah. I mean,
Crashing.
it was weird watching it too, because the lap before they said he had like what 6.5 second gap, and then all of a sudden it's like 4.7. I'm like, what the fuck happened? But I just figured he was mailing it in. I didn't, I was like, he's just mailing it in, like whatever.
Yeah, at the end, after that, I think he chilled out and finished the race.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm getting a bunch of questions from people already.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Bass asks this, or it's BAS. It's not the other guy, but
Not the bad guys.
it's not the bass player guy.
Yeah. PAS.
Yeah, it says BAS.
BAS.
Yeah.
Bad.
So he says on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you miss the baggers?
I didn't even realize they were gone.
Oh wow. Okay. And then let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of people talking about Cam's crash and like feedback on how it happened, but you pretty went into depth with that. But you want to talk a little bit about what caused him to get the meatball or whatever?
So somewhere within all that stuff, we had a cracked oil pipe,
Oh,
and yeah, just a little pinhole leak, and it started spraying on the exhaust headers. So it somewhere you crash bikes uh, here and there, wherever. Eventually, something gives up that you don't notice, you don't catch in a hasty repair, and don't know if it was related to the crash or something to do with impact from previous or whatever. But yeah, I just had a little pinhole leak right at a joint of this tube, and it just was spraying on one of the headers, and it was off on kind of smoke, and then it started getting a little bit worse. So I'm kind of glad they meatballed it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, no point. He was already 5 laps down anyway, so.
Yeah, I don't want to get any oil on the racetrack and things like that. And
But what's crazy is the guy crashed and the thing was leaking like that or whatever, making quite the smoke show. But he was still doing the times, right? Like,
yeah, it wasn't affecting the lap time. I didn't even know anything happened. Like the engine
yeah,
was still strong and all that. It was just, like I said, it was blown. He didn't even know why he got meatballed. He came in, there was a
mm,
little bit of oil on the boot. But yeah, I was off the right side of the bike, which is weird because he crashed on the left side. So it might have been completely unrelated, but yeah, at the end it turned out to be a little small pinhole type thing.
right on, right on.
Yeah, so no baggers, but we got a chance to put some oil down.
Yeah, so Bearded Jixer says, oh, he was asking about that, but he was saying that bummer for Cam because he looked like he went around Cam Bobier pretty easily, and when he returned to the track, so it's bummer that he, I don't know, he would have just taken 1 lap down, like he still had 4 more to go.
He wouldn't have taken 1 lap down. He'd have to catch Jake to take a lap off. But we
Right.
were thinking he would have caught, I think it was Lampkin that was in front of him.
Yeah.
Could have got 14th, but he would have to work his way up a little bit, and he was just too far back. So
Yeah.
he wasn't really trying to pass those guys. He was just kind of hanging behind him. He told me after he could have taken advantage of a couple times where Cameron and Matt ran wide and could have ducked in underneath them, but he's like, yeah, he didn't want to disrupt their race. Hannah Lopez came up to me during that, and she said, what did she say? What were her exact words? Something like, "Are you trying to mess up the other riders, or trying to unlap you guys yourself?" Or I can't remember the words she said, disrupt or something like that. Are you trying to disrupt the other riders' rhythm? Or I'm like, no, he's still racing. He's still, if there's a red flag, you might be able to get a lap or two back. If they bunched lap himself with a couple of
Right.
guys right in front of him, try to get a couple extra points.
Yeah, plus, right, if they had to do a restart, it would start at 0 again, right?
No, it doesn't work that way in this race. You start 4 or 5 laps down, not going 200.
Right on. Okay,
Yeah, but they
so
start 200, you start at 0, that's for sure, whatever position you were in.
in race 2 there was something that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Scholtzy's in second, I believe, and Cam Bobie is in third.
Good.
And they had a pretty good scrap there. And then on the front straightaway on the run to the checkers, Cam's right behind him, and you know, Matt is kind of veering to the left out of the last corner, and Cam had to check up there at the end, and Cam had a pretty classy response. He's like, dude, he couldn't see me from, he didn't know I was going that way, so no big deal, no harm, no foul, right? Um, and
I guess
it's
the front on the exit or something, and then but he did say he swerved to the inside to try to block any type of draft move,
right.
and which is kind of interesting because isn't that what happened to Cameron at Road Atlanta? He lost the front and pushed Heron off the track just about. So
Yeah,
kind of interesting how that happened.
you're right. Yeah. Well, I took note of it because I was involved in something like that at round one of a club race this year. And the guy behind, like, I had no idea he was there, but I wasn't doing it to block. I was doing it to just buzz the starter, like, on the run to the checkers. And but I guess there was a dude kind of trying to pass me on the left, and I didn't know he was there. And yeah, it was a pretty heated exchange after that. you know, apparently I'm
Yeah,
purposely blocking him and all that. So,
yeah.
you know, there's
Riders get all that adrenaline going and
emotion.
all wound up and emotions, and
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
happens.
yeah. It's like, you know, Cam just handed they stuck a mic in his face right after it happened. He's like, I don't. Yeah, it's not an intentional thing. He didn't even know I was there. Pretty easy
Yeah,
end of discussion, and you know, so it's kind of
I heard he
interesting to
was.
see that on
I heard he
TV.
was more frustrated than that, but it's the stuff you hear behind the scenes.
Right. But, you know, like immediately after on TV, he was super classy and respectful, you know? So,
That's the way he's always been.
yeah, of course. Of course. So, yeah, I mean, you know, you come away, you entered the
No,
weekend.
we were,
Jake tied for first place in the points, and now he's got a little bit of a gap, a little lead, right?
yeah, I mean the running order this week, like race one was a good example because race two was kind of strange for
Yeah.
us anyway, with Cameron crashing and the little smoke show at the end. But race one was kind of indicative about preseason of how the running order would be, right? It
Yeah.
would be probably the three Yamahas and Cameron Beaubier involved somewhere in there. Then after that, we were thinking, okay, maybe Escalante. Then after that, the Ducati. So it was kind of
Yeah.
interesting how this particular track anyway went that way. I think Road America will be a little bit different. I think racing for the win over there, and so will Jake, and so will Cam Peterson, and so will Stoltz. I think it'll be a pretty good fight, kind of more like Atlanta, and so will Heron. Because their bikes are fast.
Yeah. That
And
Ducati is fast.
and like Road America, apparently they repaved. Not apparently they did. They repaved the whole racetrack, and some of the guys went and tested there to see what type of rubber. And it's like Barber was when they first paved it. It just chews everything up.
Really?
They're gonna bring their hardest stuff, like R7, R8. I
Hmm.
mean, bowling ball hard tires. So it'll be interesting to see how high power motorcycle or a more nimble motorcycle, how they both handle that type of rubber and who can get the grip and the wear faster,
Hmm.
let's say. We have pretty good control over our electronics, and so we'll be working diligently on that, but we didn't have any time there on any tires
Yeah.
with the smoothest of track, so I know it'll take our guys a few laps to figure out the limits of the track.
Right.
We'll start probably with hard tires and see how they go. But the grip is going to be nothing, and because you're going to be on such hard tires, just to make the tires last. And there's apparently the track is super duper smooth, so there's no undulations. So it's going to be that weird feeling again, like they had a Barber, where you bend it in and you don't know what the tires are doing because A, they're hard, and B, there's no feedback from the track.
Yeah.
It's like the suspension's stuck in one position, and you're like, what's going on? So it's going
Right.
to take those guys a few laps. And unfortunate part about Road America is you don't hardly get any laps because the laps are so long. So you don't go over the
It's
same
like
stretch of
four and a
pavement very
half
often.
miles or something crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean the lap times are 2 minute 10, 12. But I heard Cam Beaubier went like a 2:16. When they were there, I guess the track was kind of cold and was a little damp in the morning, so maybe the track wasn't great. And then I think PJ went a 2:14 with a special tire that they were testing. It won't be on the allocations. You can throw that lap time out.
Right.
And I heard they were the only guys in the teens.
Oh shit.
I think everybody else was like 220 something by what I heard,
Wow,
but I
that's
could be wrong.
crazy.
They weren't advertising any times. They didn't have time like when we go test.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Timing and scoring as a test is key. It eliminates the liars.
It's really important, yeah, because everyone's got the creative stopwatches, it seems like, you can never get a straight answer out of anyone. Plus, exactly, it's better for the bike too because it knows to start finish and it could do the sectoring that way because distance gets a reset every time it comes by. It's really important to have that timing loop generated.
Yeah, so the bike knows what electronic strategies to go for the next corner, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can do it by distance. You can roll out of the pit and do it. And it's pretty good. It'll stay accurate for a long distances in there. The guy goes and runs wide or runs off a few times. They don't reset when I start finish. They can start
Right.
forgetting where it's at. Turn one could be turn two. And if you is pretty corners, you're going to get a whole different strategy, and it's really going to screw up the rider. You know,
That makes sense.
send them
That makes
sailing.
sense. Well, you know what? I mean, I have some data questions, but like I want to kind of talk about the other riders first in
Yep,
Superbike.
yep,
Um, it w- it was a little disappointing to see Tony so far back. You know, I don't know what's going on with
yeah.
him, but
I don't know. I haven't talked to him, so just his groove and not getting that tempo that he needs to get going.
right. I mean, I
Said, I
can't
mean,
imagine that former world champ forgot how to ride. Like,
no, he didn't forget how to ride. For when he came back that one race on the Ducati with Kyle's bike when Kyle was hurt
yeah,
at Laguna, he didn't do all that spiffy on it. Kind of mid pack on our bike months later. When was it that same year? Was it
yeah,
next year? I don't
yeah.
remember.
That was it.
And he hopped on our bike for Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
and
and Jersey.
he,
Yeah,
he was riding it like it was a Yamaha instead of a Suzuki. He wasn't cutting inside the corner, and he wasn't just straight lining and jumping off the corner. He was flowing, and that's a tough track. And it race too. Like he was. I mean, he didn't sleep at all. Flew out there, rode the bike, took a red eye, all that stuff. So I don't think he forgot how to race a motorcycle. I just think he's
yeah,
not finding the groove
yeah.
that he needs to be in.
I mean,
Reason.
you
And
know,
plus,
because
the tires were really hot for that race.
right. I mean,
So
Richie was ripping. I mean, especially
Richie
race
likes that
two.
track. It's a small.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's kind of like a chuck wall almost. Which normally like when the being done at Yamaha US over here in Cyprus factory team, they kind of struggle at that track. But the small tracks seem to be okay for us. Maybe because we're working on short track type scenarios.
right.
Yeah, it seems fine for us. But again, it's not a. I think it's like a track. So you could see a guy like Richie, who's a 600 rider, was a 600 rider, could do really the short, more flowing technical, not necessarily the hard braking and acceleration, stand it up and go thing.
Right. Right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm being told that my microphone is a little low, so I'm gonna raise the volume a little bit more. All right, that's
Okay.
about I can't go any higher than that, people. So,
You know what it is? I think I maybe have a new camera or
uh,
whatever.
oh yeah,
So
you upgraded. Well, I have this
well,
stupid thing, right?
yeah. Well, my other camera was from like I don't know, it was old, so 2006 or something, and they quite
Yeah.
making it went to like, oh hey, your camera's a piece of crap. Buy another one.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I mean, when you had the Tower of Power over there, of course, stuff doesn't last forever, right?
No.
So, right on. Yeah. So there's some people saying that the volume's good on their end. Some people are saying that you're breaking up, and I'm like, I don't know.
Or you're breaking
I
up.
don't. I don't see any breakup of you at all. Like you sound good to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because of YouTube's live broadcast thing or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, and Pinky says that it's not the mic; it's Richard's internet. Richard's got pretty good internet at Attack Performance.
Yeah,
He doesn't have as
it's
good as he
fiber optic.
doesn't have as good of internet that I have, but he's got pretty good internet. Like,
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll have to have an internet race. I'll have to get.
Yeah, right. 2 gig fiber, buddy.
Yeah. Maybe
um,
Marshall's over there dragging down some bandwidth or something in the back.
yeah, yeah. Marshall's probably logged in doing data stuff in the background. It seems
You
like you're.
know.
Am I crazy to think that you're allowing Daring to do more data stuff, and so you can kind of manage everything else, or
No, I mean that. I mean that. If you trust someone to do the work, you just do the work.
right?
And the only time you want to look over someone, they're still learning or you're collaborating. But once you guys are on the same page, it's really way of asking questions. We still collaborate.
Right.
What's up with it? Pretty much Marshall's been doing the electronics. When he
Oh
started
wow.
before, it was just, but he'll debrief both riders and he'll make the couple changes. We show up with basically strategies we know, and so it's always producing any real wild things. Corner to that corner, the way the grip translates, like how fast the guy can open the throttle.
Right. Right. So back to the other rider stuff. We already talked about Skoltz earlier. Um,
Yep.
I mean, obviously, Aussie Dave. You know, what's going on with him? He's I believe he's riding Jake's bike from last year, right? So what
What
what do
Suzuki
you?
did in Kawasaki before that. Yamaha's a little bit of a different. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
So if they need something, then we have no
Yeah.
problem giving them what they need as far as information. He gets the starting setups that we use, and he gets the starting maps that we use before. And I see Marshall talking to his data guy.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff going
Is
on,
his
and
data
he
guy?
runs.
His
I guess
data
he
guy is
runs
Nick, right?
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah. That Nick. Yeah, that Nick guy is pretty switched on. It seems. I mean, I guess they didn't want to risk the tank that you gave him, so Nick went and made a tank and then put like a shell over it. Um, I don't know if that's what they're
Yeah,
basing
their
that.
tank was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
they made a few, and they have a composite shell over the top of it, kind of like what you guys have. And ours
Okay.
has a billet uh, top set of its sheet aluminum, and then and then we have the normal cover thing. So when ours
Right.
crashes, it kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Nick's. We give them whatever info we need, and but sometimes it takes those guys a year or so to with and push to really wants. Trying to give that motorcycle what it wants. I mean, like
Right.
I said, it took about a year to come around to riding that thing the way it's supposed to be ridden. And we'll see. We'll see how he does with it.
So and then obviously number two. I mean, he looked like he was, dude. He looked like his bike was wiggling something fierce down the straights, man. Like it reminded me of, I don't know if you remember Marco Melandri a couple years ago in World Superbike, the Ducati
Yeah.
wiggle. God damn it, dude. I was like,
Yeah. Marco,
that must be that must be scary.
Marco was doing that on the Yamaha
Did he?
because I remember I
Yeah. Oh,
talked to him at Laguna, and
yeah.
they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. That didn't calm it down. I was with him. I didn't get too because he was kind of bumming all the
Yeah.
negativity. And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, Marco. Yeah, I get it. You know,
Yeah. Bummer. Let's have a beer later. Right. That
yeah.
sucks. But yeah, I mean, it just looked like. I mean, I could only imagine what it was like to ride something like that and have it shake so violently every straightaway. I was, I mean, he finished basically where he finishes, but I mean, in Superbike, but it looked like if the thing is fast. Everybody knows that bike's fast, and I wonder what do you think would cause that shaking down the straight thing?
Um,
Yeah.
There's a number of things that happen. I mean, steering dampers that are steering head bearings that might be impacted in one location. Swing arm slope, too open, too topped out, top out spring. I mean, there's just between the rear wheel and the front wheel. I mean, there's just the list goes cause the bike to shake. You know, it could be the rider's influence, how he's standing on the pegs, how is he death gripping the bars, is he too loose on the bars? I mean, there's just so many things.
Yeah.
Tires, the bike doesn't get along with it, and they haven't found for it. But I mean, he was going good at Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this and all that stuff. But Atlanta's just, like I said, a different track. This place is a lot, and you're accelerating on the side of the tire.
Yeah.
The tire maybe wants to stand up and go. You know, which is that way, and part of it's not. Part of it's flowing, get up and go. So we'll see how it all shakes out in Road America. But it was going to go that way because that thing the previous year couldn't do anything with it at the last race of the championship. You figured, and he just knew straight away he had nothing.
Yeah.
Before it was wet, he was really good in the wet, but it wasn't doing too good in the dry. So kind of been that way around goes at Road America.
Yeah.
Interesting. The difference, the strengths in the different motorcycles and how they're going to play out from different style tracks.
Right. I mean, it just seems like the level of competition's better. It's getting better, it seems like. Seems like more people are hungry. You know, that BMW, that Tytler's team, those guys are hungry to, you know, like they said in the beginning of the year, right? They're like, oh, well, we want to do a favor and, you know, take that championship pressure off you, you know, that kind of thing. So,
well, it can still happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah, yeah. But it's exciting for the fans to maybe not 100% know who's going to win every weekend. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go to the data stuff because I do want to talk about some of the other classes and some of the other stuff that's going on. But let's get to that data stuff because I think before the show I asked you to see if we could pull up the data of Jake's little moment that he discussed on the podium on Sunday, where he's all by himself, 6.5 seconds out, and then said he nearly sent it to the weeds. Had to cut through the grass and stuff. Like, what did that look like on the data?
Let me see if I can open it and show you. Maybe I'll show you the lap before, and then we can do an overlay. What it looks like on that lap. Whatever. So, all right. So I'll share the data here. Oh. There it is. You getting it or no? Not yet.
Let's see. Not yet. Oh, there we go. Now we got it.
Got it?
All right. So yeah. So we got the full nerd screen up. We got the lean angle.
So you see the
dial.
Yeah. So right. You're where it is over here. That's where it's coming down. I turn 2.
Yeah.
And going down 3. You see it there. So you can.
Yeah.
Lean angle here. And you can see the lean angle.
Yeah.
Bottle. You kind of. And it goes. Boom. And then down here is this very. Is the wheel slip. So that's the wheel slip. Corner to corner to corner. Right.
Okay.
Zoom up in the section here. Just that one section there. So it's a little bit. You can kind of see that. That's the throttle, like I said.
Yeah.
And you kind of let off.
And then the thing on the bottom line is the wheel slip.
That's the wheel slip. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
You get a little bit of a spike there. He's trying to.
Yeah.
And
then when things start to grip, he opens it. He has a good feel for when the tire's
gripping to get a throttle.
Yeah.
Lean angle is pretty steady.
The lean angle is pretty steady going from there down to 0. When he hits the brakes, going down to 5. If we
right.
And the next lap,
it's a full second slower.
Give it a second to open, so you can see the
lean angle.
I think Wintax is not being a happy camper today. Give it a second.
Yeah.
Italian software.
Okay.
At least it's not Danish.
Okay. Danish.
Oh yeah,
more.
Danish is like MS
DOS.
Oh, dude. So
for all the computer.
Danish is so shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see where he opened the throttle more here.
So I think he's trying to get ahead of.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah.
So then he stabs the throttle again, getting a little throttle happy, and then that's where all of a sudden big spike.
Big slip.
You see what that big slip is? Right then he realizes the bike's going sideways. He
does what everybody does. He chops. Spike, but you can see where
the bike went. It went from
sort of need to go.
Try to pitch him off of there, and it's still slipping, like big.
Oh man.
Going to
very little lean angle. I mean,
that bike was pretty much
up and down, slightly leaned over, so the thing was already going pretty sideways.
Of course, it recovers here and goes back to lean. That's when he went on the inside
and ran across the grass.
Oh man, Jake's not a super emotional dude, but his eyes were pretty big when he described that, and I'm like, man, if Jake's talking about it, it must have been huge,
Yeah. So it.
Yeah.
That's what I see in that guy.
I think that's about it. I mean, I did talk about maybe showing like Jake's fastest lap versus Cam's fastest lap overlay, but I mean the reality is, it sucks. Campy crash, man. It's a bum for him. But yeah, I mean, you could just see on that data though, you could see that Jake had a pretty big moment, and the guy is like basically he's like Iceman. He didn't even give a shit. He's just like his eyes were pretty big. And I think the fact that he talked about it and mentioned it, it must have been pretty big. But too bad that Motor America didn't have cameras to show it, or maybe they do and they just are waiting to release it or something. I don't know, but we didn't see it on the live feed.
So show that screen cap on TV. So it was like somebody was filming it with their watching TV.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's not really bad. So it must be somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty sideways in the. You just went up over the rise and ran over the grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Result.
Yeah. Well, whatever. He didn't. He ended up with a win, so we're good. All right. So let's talk about a couple other things. Obviously, the big news this week was Toprak announcing that he's leaving Yamaha at the end of the season. So what's the deal there, man? Like, what's going on? I mean, I actually have a commenter that asked. Let me see what he said. He said, "Did he leave because the Yamaha engine is poopy?" I think that's the words. I think he used poopy.
Yeah. In the World Superbike is not completely, quite a bit in the chassis, but the Ducati revs to 16,000 something. But then you go back and it's the same argument that the tech guys have over there, and they go, okay, about the rest of the Ducatis. Why is Toprak beating all of them? It's a fight or he's beating them. So if and he's beating, are pretty powerful too.
Yeah.
Or no, I think the package is good. It just maybe he doesn't have a path to, or maybe he didn't give enough, make him a big enough offer.
Yeah.
BMW probably has really deep pockets. It's just about the money. I mean, Redding went also BMWs. I thought that was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
Hard to say what the
I mean, I was kind of hoping that Toprak would go to MotoGP. You know, it seemed like that was kind of like a path for him. You know.
They gave him a test, and then Lynn Jarvis talked about it. That they gave him a shot, and it was going to take a long time for him to get around it. And they didn't have a B
Yeah.
team; they needed a now.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Full, I think. So I don't know.
Like, I mean, I've seen
No.
a bunch of speculation on the internet that this means BMW is going to come out to MotoGP. I don't know about that. And then also that maybe that'll open up a spot for Jake in World Superbike.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
For the riders leaving, going on to something better, as long as not something worse.
Yeah, a bunch of people are commenting and they're, you know, like no symptoms says, I don't think it's bike related. I believe all the moves like this come down to money.
It's
So,
possible. I mean, I may give him a you know, amount. So it's hard to say.
so Pinky has a couple of comments. Pinky says he left because stupid Kenan Sofoglu, I think,
Mm-hmm.
got mad because Yamaha didn't give Toprak the GP ride, and then he says that Redding is gonna head to Yamaha.
Really?
I didn't hear
That'd be
that.
interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
I mean, you know, Redding's not having very much luck on that BMW, that's for sure.
Right.
Good rider.
Yeah.
I
same job as Toprak.
mean, I don't know. I mean, his, you know,
Well, he's a big dude. You know, he's definitely a big dude. So.
I mean, the progression stuff. And so they're like,
Right.
well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Stay here for another 4 years?
Right.
So it's almost
Right.
natural for someone just scenery. I think that we're not getting a progression. I don't know. I think
For him,
it would be better to go after Ducati.
Ducati's
Ducati's mentality lately is not paying the riders anything. Not like free. A lot of money for salary, because I think they're paying their GP guys just a little bit thing, or maybe the same, and the bonuses because they can get young guys from Moto 2 for cheap, and they're going to ride.
Right.
You know, the days of the tens of millions are paying like a Lorenzo are gone.
Oh, okay.
They're seeing much better from bringing young. I'm sure Bagnaia has already changed
salary, but I think
the other a lot, and because
Right.
they're motivated, and they well, they're not paying them, you know, tens of millions, so you might
Yeah.
cash you're saving.
you can put more bikes on the
Well,
track.
there's a couple of comments coming in. Proto says Toprak doesn't need money, man. He's already a god in Turkey and has every sponsorship in the country possible. Matthew McComer says Redding reminds him of Heron or vice versa. Yeah, very, very tall, tatted up Heron, right? Like big time tatted
No, one
up.
thing that surprised me about Redding when he was riding the Ducati, he was always getting so pissed at how, you know, like, oh, he rode, he's this, he's that. And, dude, quit whining and start getting it on. If someone does that to you, just do it.
Yeah, and then David Cross says the fact that Keenan is Toprak's manager is also a factor to make things interesting. And too bad Toprak and Kawasaki was broken. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fan shit, right?
I don't think you go to Kawasaki. He already rode one of them,
Right.
right? So I don't think
Right.
he was going to go to Kawasaki. But the
Right.
BMW thing's a little surprising. I thought maybe Ducati, but they probably weren't willing to pay or didn't.
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
Progression to so if I
But
was him, I'd be like, hey, I'll ride the Superbike for a year, salary, and as long as you agree to put,
feedback.
Right.
because I think that would be a
Yeah.
pretty good path, but they didn't go that route. And he's still young. I mean, he still could happen.
So as far as the other classes in Moto America, I mean, Stock 1000, basically Hayden Gillim pulled a Jake Gagne both days and just checked out, pieced out,
Yeah.
and left the race for second with
Hmm.
basically the two Orange Cat dudes, Ezra Bobier and Caleb DeCarroll. So that was
Right.
pretty interesting. Like those guys had nothing for Hayden. He was gone, dude. like by a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, there you go again. I mean, not technical, but a little bit, a lot of turn
Just back.
tire, a lot of opening throttle on the edge of the tire. So a powerful bike can't stretch its legs over Alabama.
Right.
So it comes to that. So you didn't see the BMWs do as good as they did at Road Atlanta when you have a long
Yeah.
straightaway right or a couple flip flops to the end. Which and at America, you have the corners before the corner that leads on to from Canada to the last technical. You're on the side of the tire quite a bit, and then when you're going out of that last corner, you're going uphill, and over that rise it's wheeling to. You're going to get a lot of cut play into the face powerful motorcycle. No, and Coda's got that long back, but then you get into a series of corners, long, short, and then you have a run that's fairly short to the finish line.
Right.
So I could get in there first into that series of corners, or in the series of pass, then it's not going to get beat. So it's kind of going to be interesting how those two tracks, they're a bit different than Road Atlanta had that long straight prior,
Yeah.
pretty much a braking zone, and as long as it's going to be pretty to the finish line.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's the
And
difference.
then so Hayden Gillim, did what he did, and man, he's such a good dude, but he's so big. He's like the dude is like you see his hands when he's got his kid in his hand on the podium. You're just like, dude, he looks like somebody that works on a farm, dude. Like he's just big, and to be able to do that as a big guy like that, it's pretty impressive. But
Kentucky.
yeah, super sport class. It looks like maybe this season's gonna be the Forez Mesa Hayes show pretty much all year, right? A little bit of crash
You
fest.
kind of knew that was going to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Mesa's riding really well. I guess that Tytler's support is really kicking the spurs to him a bit. Um, and then Josh Hayes is Mr. Josh Hayes, so he's going to be right there every weekend as well. Um, the Super Sport race did have, it's like something different. They were doing the extended race, 30 some laps or whatever, and then massive amount of red flags. It just made it a bunch of drama. And some of the drama was also present in the Twins race. And I actually have the rule book from Moto America up and, about the quote unquote actively competing thing. Uh,
Yeah.
you want to talk a little bit about quote unquote actively competing? And you know what? I'll just share my screen real quick too. I'll pull it up so people that
Yeah.
haven't read the rule book can see it. But let's see, where is it? Rule book. Rule book. Results? No, that's not it. I don't know where it is. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, actively competing. Riders must be actively participating at the time of the red flag is displayed. For the purpose of these regulations, quote, actively competing is defined as the rider riding on track or attempting to repair / restart the machine or to rejoin the track or return to pit lane. Race direction will be the sole judge of whether a rider is actively competing with the decision, including safety considerations. So, I mean, uh, that's a little, based on what we saw on TV. Like, I mean, I saw that Jarrett Nassani was kind of pulled off the grid for that, and maybe a couple other riders as well. And then in the Twins Cup race, obviously Gus Rodeo, the big drama was that one. But there was a bunch of
Mhm.
riders that didn't make the cut there. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Probably race direction screwed up. You know, they was written from causing a red flag or, let's delay on the racetrack
Or you throw rocks
until
on
the
the
red flag.
track, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, until the red flag comes out. Better, you hop on the bike and you ride in. So I do go, oh, hey, because you laid on the racetrack the whole time and you weren't hurt, you're not actively just trying to buy time. The
right.
air in the racetrack all
Yeah,
spready, And then
right.
he got up and went back to the pit. That's that's I think the intent of that rule. If it falls down and then he's like, I'm done, he goes and sits on the wall and bike isn't trying to push it off, and then a red flag comes out because it's a racetrack. And then
Yeah,
that's not actively competing. So I do
yeah.
believe that's what I heard. There was more rodeo sitting on the wall, and some of those other guys were able. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I do have the facts. Well, I mean, I got the facts directly. I instead of dealing with conspiracy theories and bullshit, I went straight to Chuck Axland and I reached out to him and I asked him. And I actually have what Chuck said pulled up if you want to hear that. But he basically
Yeah,
says
let's hear it.
actively competing is basically used to determine if the rider is still in the competition or not. It's to deter a rider from laying there to draw a red flag and then getting back in the race. It's used in
Yeah,
the World Championship as well. So Gus Rodeo crashed, was in the gravel trap for just over 30 seconds, then got up, walked with his back to the bike towards the outside guardrail, basically walking off the track. So the determination from race control was that he was not competing, and they have footage of this. If he had got up, went to his bike, the likely outcome would have been a little different. There were multiple riders in the same incident. A couple were deemed not actively competing as well, and the other two, unfortunately, the marshals didn't report them to race control, and so without notifying race control, they had no idea they weren't in the race until it was too late. So that was the communication error. And just a heads up, I also spoke to Nicole Cox, who is basically the Moto America representative in race control. And so it was her and Rick Hobbs that were the ones that were deciding that. And she backed that up as well. She's like, yeah, unfortunately there was two guys that didn't deserve to be out. They should have been pulled from the grid as well.
yeah,
But because they
yeah,
weren't, it wasn't reported, like the flag dudes weren't reporting that they didn't belong. Like basically she's like, yeah, we fucked up, you know?
yeah.
And
I
I
think it's a good
asked
rule.
her, yeah, I think so. I think so. I asked Nicole what Moto America's plan was to avoid that kind of human error again in the future. And so there's a couple things. So they said that Nicole said that they were going to add another person in timing and scoring. And I guess there's a feature in MyLapse's Speed Hive thing that has predictive timing. So that it would kind of give them an idea based on the sectors where the riders are. And if they disappear from one, they kind of generally know that they're not there anymore. And they could look them up, right? And find out if they were actively
They
competing.
fell down or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
so that would
yeah.
go
And
that would go along with the course control people reporting the numbers as well. They could compare notes, right? But she also said that they're considering doing like the World Superbike style transponder thing that has like the crash sensor on it and the GPS locator. So both of those options I think are great, and it's awesome that number one they admitted that there was a fuck up, right? And number two they have a plan to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and most Superbikes
they have
have
that transponder, which also transmits all the flags to the dash, and also transmits bike functions to. So if your bike
Yeah.
is off, then the location your
But-
bike is off, and it's somewhere where, you know,
they felt you.
fell down, they can see actively compete or not. But you know,
Yeah.
that happened to Jake at Brainerd, right? And he had fallen down and he ran off the racetrack because he didn't want to come around. He ran back. So they threw the red flag. He had a chance to pick up the bike, but he was actively competing by making an attempt to get his
Right.
bike up and off the racetrack and ride it back to the pits.
Right. Yeah. And you know the thing is, there was some other controversy too. Like I mean, there was a lot of people, including some of the riders, that were complaining in that, especially in that Twins Cup race, that they felt that it took Moto America a little longer than they maybe should have to throw the red flag in the first place. And I don't know how long it took to make the call. You know, but certainly Rocco Landers, as soon as it started raining, he was waving his hand. He backed off, and Rocco didn't fall down. And then Rocco on the restart went and smashed everybody. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. This is from the wet session
yeah. Yep.
when it started raining.
Yep.
Yeah, some people just didn't slow down at all. It's they have a lot of experience in the wet or riding slicks when it's wet.
Right.
You know, so it didn't rain that hard. So
Yeah.
who knows what on their heads.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bummer, you know. I mean, I did see some chatter. I didn't hear from Gus Rodeo. I'd like to talk to him and see if I can get his side of the story. I think I'm going to speak about this thing more in depth later in another podcast or whatever with Ken Hill. But I think it'd be nice to get the other side of the story so I can kind of combine them both and weigh both sides. But I did see Gus's his commentary online, and it was pretty heated. I mean, obviously, the kid's ready to go racing, and he didn't get to go racing. So it's a bummer deal.
Well, like I told our riders, down and you're capable of getting up, get up and run towards your motorcycle. You know, pick it up, have a look at it, and the pits.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Because if
Yeah, I
there is
mean-
a red flag, then it gives you a
Yeah.
chance to continue to compete.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Nisani's case, you know, Nisani wasn't allowed to continue, and I think he has a kind of a legitimate argument. It sounds like maybe he was basically told by the corner, he was doing what the corner workers told him to do. Like they were maybe a little power hungry course control people. I don't know, but the corner workers were like making him get away from the bike or whatever, and you know he finally did pick the thing up, and you know they put it back together so he could make the restart, and then they didn't allow him to race. So I don't know. There might be something for Chuck and the gang to look at, you know.
In 18, if you recall, Heron fell down on our bike,
Yes.
right? And a couple laps to go, or one lap to go, and his handlebar broke or something like that because I think he went over the top of it and it landed on the bar and
Right.
it broke. He was trying to get the bike going again, and the corner workers were holding him, like physically holding him. And the guy who was physically holding him was a bonehead.
Right.
You know, you should let him get back on track, and he could have at least tooled around.
Right.
You know, if the rider thinks he's able to ride the motorcycle, he should be able to ride the motorcycle as long as it's not leaking fluid or something like that.
Right.
And
Well, I
even
mean,
I've seen guys ride with one handlebar.
right. Yes. And you know, the thing is, this is a professional series. You know, in most club race series, the moment your handlebar touches the ground, you're done, right? So, and that's not the rule
Yeah,
here.
practice.
So, right, yeah, the moment your handlebar touches the ground in a club race, your race is over. You don't get to pick the thing up and keep going.
Really?
No, typically not. No.
Uh,
Um,
Days talking about bad. You had to. Those guys at DMG were such idiots. It was unbelievable. I mean, they didn't have a brain amongst, because I mean, it's just awful.
right.
During the DMG days, even a small tip off, you had to come back in the pits and get a tech inspection before you could ride back out. Your race was over.
Right. I wonder whose
I
bright
mean, how
idea that
stupid is
was.
that? Uh,
Yeah.
NASCAR morons, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's who owned it.
Right.
I wouldn't say they were micro. Those idiots run their own show, I'm sure. Some of those guys, I think, still work for Motor America.
Really?
Two of them, at least one I know of. I mean, it's just they're always been in the behind the scenes. So when these guys hire people, they're always, oh, that guy was course control or tech inspection or this or that or
Right.
some direction of some kind. So they just keep going from one one management to the other on top. But yeah,
Yeah.
I can't even remember everyone's names. One guy went to Canada. He was down doing that series. So
Right.
thing.
Well, I just, like I said, if the corner workers were overstepping their role a bit, hopefully Chuck and the team over there will like investigate that and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, that's just better communication with the corner workers and having a better corner worker briefing and telling them what they can and can't do.
Right.
Usually, in some series, you see the corner workers are anxious to get going.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
all for allowing the riders to put on a show. We're there to be competitive, and we want everyone to keep racing. I mean, that's what I would like to see. So as long as the bike is good all over the place, then it should keep racing.
Right.
No matter what. Yeah.
And let's see here. Bearded Jixer says Hayes has a full ride for the year, which is cool. Because he's been kind of doing the in and out thing for a couple years, and
Yeah,
I
Squid
guess
Hunter
that
deal.
the Squid Hunter deal is like, yeah, let's do the whole thing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's pretty cool
Yeah,
for Josh to.
I've talked to that Squid Hunter guy. He's pretty motivated, so it'd be cool to see the thing step up a little bit bigger than it is.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe they'll step up something bigger. How old is Josh now? He's almost 50.
Dude, he's older than me, and I'm 47. Like, I think he's
I think he's
48.
almost 50, right?
I think he's 48 and change.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
pretty more on our bike way back in the day. Like
Yeah.
2003.
Yeah, 3 and 4, right? Yeah.
3, 4, and 5. He rode with us.
You gotta love him though, man. The dude is definitely motivated and he's super fit, just like always.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's motivated.
We talk about
the three things: skill, talent, and motivation. And
yeah,
I'm not the most talented guy, but I'm motivated and skilled. Like he really learns from everything and analyzes everything. He's doing his rider coach thing, but man, he coaches a lot of guys too. I mean, he's got a full plate.
Yeah, he does.
He's coaching, he's riding. He's doing it all over there.
Yeah,
he's busy.
And he's a dad, right? He's a dad.
A dad of two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Motorhome.
Dude's a beast.
It's like family to the races.
Right. So Mike C says these young riders watch MotoGP where riders crash and walk off the track because the arrow is ripped off. They need to watch WEC. I guess that's the World Endurance
Championship,
where the riders crash, run to the bike, and push it back to the pits.
Yeah, we are racing, so it's kind of not the same as World Championship. World Championship, you're going for hours. So as long as you can drag that thing by the front tire, I can get it back to the pit, get back out there. I mean, we did it. We swapped an engine and still in a good spot.
Right.
24 hours, losing a lap or two is no big deal because you can gain it all back.
Right.
You know, when in a sprint race, and like us, all we had to do is change levers, shifter, shift a bit of wiring on the side of the bike. We lost 3 or 4 laps. You're out of the race.
Right.
So, yeah, you could think that way if a rider's smart enough to analyze his bike and decide, well, can this thing get enough? But the rider should always try. You should always try to pick up the bike and go again. You see some of these guys, you pick up the bike.
Do you think that Moto America should do an extended Superbike race with pit stop?
I don't know. There's all kinds of thinking about and it was a VIR, and it was terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, DMG did that, or I think it was DMG. Maybe it was AMA days. It was somewhere in that transition. It was Matt Mladen and those other guys, and you had to hit at a certain time, and then some guys decided they wanted to pit right in the beginning, wanted to pit right before the end, and and it was hard to tell who was winning. No real competition. It was all strategy.
Right.
So it wasn't like Daytona. Daytona, everyone kind of pits within a lap or two,
Right.
That's it. So they all doing about the same pit stop within a second or two. So they all kind of get out at the same time, and then they're racing again.
Yeah.
So Daytona kind of works out, but when you're doing a like that, mandatory, and then of course these guys have mandatory pit times too. Like you had to be a certain amount of time in the pits and back out again. I don't know. I guess just have an extended race.
Yeah.
It's already has to be kind of a parade, like lap, right?
Yeah.
I would think we have more of a Super Pole race type thing, where the World Championship MotoGP has gone to a sprint race and the pole race, right?
Yeah, do like
because
a
it brought
10 lap.
more.
The 10 lap to show, it'd be neat.
I think it'd be a snooze fest if you did this pit stop race.
Right.
Everyone is that close to where it made doing a parade like race 1, where you got a guy 3 seconds, 4 seconds out, and the pit time is all the same. So the pit stop can't get you in. Right. If you have to be in the pits for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
So the advantage, so you're going to have just a longer parade.
Yeah.
I think it's better to make it shorter races, or one short race added in there, like a Super Bowl race, if they're going to do anything, and have a complete slugfest for 10 laps. That'd be more interesting. Guys won't be saving their tire; they'll be just going ruthless, like MotoGP sprint race. You see the MotoGP sprint race? I mean, those guys are brutal.
Dude, it's insane. It's awesome to watch, though. Jesus, they are like.
And the points only paid near. The points only paid near the front was something like that, or I can't remember how many. So you have to slug it out with someone and get up there in the beginning. You're not going to make any points. You got to move your time. Go for it.
So I got a couple more comments coming in. Matthew McComber wants to know, do you ever ride the bike? It's been a minute since you've been out riding it.
Yeah, I haven't done it lately. I'd like to. Just never seem to have any time.
I keep trying to scumbag you to kidnap you from the shop, but you're too busy. Like, you're always elbow deep in something over there. So. Yeah.
Last time I was with you guys at one of the track days, something like that, and I was with the advanced group and national level riders there.
Yeah.
And that passed me, and I wanted to go past them right. And so Chase, I was like, you know what? You're an idiot. What are you doing? You have to go to work on Monday. You have to run a race team. You have to run a business. You have to run a family. Put the ego aside. You don't need to be racing these guys. They're just young guys, and or look like crazy. They're fast. But yeah, dive bombs you on the inside. It's not a good environment. I'm a little too competitive.
I've raced you in go-karts, and I know exactly that you're saying is the truth.
I don't
yeah,
like
you get it. You race go-karts with Richard. Pretty much, you get anywhere near him, he's putting you in the wall.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
If we
Yeah.
had stewards of go-karts, I would have been disqualified a bunch. I'd be doing long penalties all day
Oh
long.
man. Oh man. Okay, so then another question is from Pinky says, do you think this new generation of riders have a weaker mind than the riders of the 2000s era, the Mladen, Spies, Yates, Hayden, Hayes, Duhamel, etc.?
I think in a way, yeah, because if anything goes wrong with a bike, they don't know how to ride it anymore. Like if you have a clutch chatter, they don't know how to pull their finger off, they can go away, or if they have a shifter go down, they pit. Oh, my shifter went out, my blipper went out. They forget how to ride the bike. I've seen that. Oh, the shifter went out. I can't blip. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the conveniences of having the systems the way they are, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're gonna fly a fighter that's fly by wire and all of a sudden down and you gotta fly it hydraulics, it'd be difficult. You know, you want to go back to the airport as fast as possible, right? So I understand, but yeah, the guys of the yesteryear, they didn't have TC and all that fancy stuff, so
It
they
had
just
flat slides, and this was the TC, right?
that was the TC. That the rear brake was the TC. So they
Right.
differently, you know. We had big rear rotors and lots of pads and things like that.
And
Now
Oh,
it's
I
oh, you need
honestly
to.
don't miss that shit. Like, it's so much easier now. Like, I know how to blip the throttle. I used to be like super proud of my blipping, and as soon as the auto blip came, I'm like, okay, I'm a retard. I don't even know what I'm doing. This is so much better. It's so much more accurate. So much cleaner. It
I mean,
does
they didn't have
such a
slipper
good job.
clutches back then.
Right.
So I mean, we're modifying. We're putting slipper clutches in engines that never had them back then, and making our own.
Right.
A Suitor or an STM back then. That was kind of new. Only the factory got super duper stuff, you know, or the bike came.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said before, you know, when Pridmore rode our bike, he said it was so much mentally easier, physically more challenging. So I think the riders of today have to be more like triathletes than before.
Right.
That's what he's. What was the name of that guy? What was his name? Krusty, you know, from Australia that came
Oh
here.
yeah. Yeah.
Drinking dude wasn't very fit,
Yeah.
but he could ride a motorcycle like crazy, you know, because
Yeah.
he could
Marty
concentrate.
Kragel? Is it Marty Kragel?
Marty Cagle, yeah.
Why do I remember that? Like, I have like CTE, no memory, and you say Krusty, and I remember Marty Kragel.
Well, I just remember that guy fast and was completely out of shape. You'd see him in the Outback just drinking everyone, you know, under the table. And the next day
Yeah.
he'd be laying on the grid before like Freddie, and everybody else is stretching, getting ready to go, and then he would just go. So he had the mental toughness to ride the bike, but no physical strength. That guy did not survive on our motorcycles. Period.
Right.
He would go straight to the back.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I rode your
physically,
motorcycle. I rode your motorcycle. I was about 45 pounds heavier than I am now, but I mean, it was super. I only did one session on it, obviously, but what I did get to ride, it was super physical. I felt like a fat slug on it and late for everything, and I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on? I'm
yeah,
not
it's
used to
easy
having my
mentally.
eyes and my mentality so far ahead of the bike that bike
Yeah,
needs. So
the bike's easy to ride when it comes to the controls, but you have to be physically fit to be able to ride at that level.
right,
right.
Race. I mean,
right.
you look at, he looks like a freaking airborne ranger, you know?
Dude, he
Like
does.
he's super lean, no body fat, you know, and you go, how the hell does he do it? But he's got the and you don't have to concentrate so much on hitting, you know, open right. You just have to get to the apex and stack open and make sure you're physically fit enough to move that bike around.
Yeah,
So that's the guys from then. So to answer your question, yeah, I guess they're weaker in some ways and stronger than in others. They're a
yeah,
bit finicky when it comes to settings, you know,
yeah,
finickier now. before we didn't have those settings. So everyone's kind of all tuning in on, oh, I need some more EB, or I need this, I need that. You know, my shifter, my this, my that. So you do get a little more finicky bunch, but they're definitely more physically fit.
So Proto is asking about if there's any R1 updates coming, like for aero package or any progress in that direction.
I don't know. You know, I don't know if they can keep up with the Joneses or not.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Yamaha's got up their sleeve. You know, I mean, people say whatever they're gonna say, but I mean, our bikes, it's basically the core design of this bike was from 2015, right?
Well, the design was earlier than that, the core design.
Right.
It goes back a long ways, but yeah, so the latest iteration was 15 and 20.
Right. Well, they got a slight change in 18, but yeah, 20 is the big one with the electronics.
Yeah, they got the throttle body change and some other stuff that was an upgrade, but basically the base engine was the same.
Yeah.
And I mean, we keep tweaks to it, making it faster and faster and faster. Keep trying to find little bits here and there, but you look at a Porsche, and it's basically the same car with tweaks nonstop.
Yeah, it's a sloped VW Beetle, right?
You know, opposing started off as air cooled, then it got a better air cooled engine, then it got a fast turbo, air cooled, then it became a liquid cooled, was the biggest iteration, and then he's adding more and more boost and faster stuff to it. You know, better body, better suspension, better brakes, bigger wheels. Just keeps going that direction. And it's still an awesome car. You know, all these years, basically the same package.
Yeah. I'm being asked if you're bored with the R1.
No. Who's bored of winning? I mean, I don't understand the question. You guys are winning too much. I was bored when Cameron Beaubier rode our bike. There was nobody else in the paddock that was keeping up with him.
Yeah.
You know, and Rick Hobbs, who was his crew chief from the year before, his crew chief. Then he went to. I ran into him at Laguna or something. He said, I said, honestly, I'm kind of bored because he's just winning too easy, and everything's coming too easy. Like because of COVID, brought their game yet. But lately, it's, you know, you don't know with Cameron Beaubier riding the BMW and Heron on the Ducati. You don't know who's next. You know, who's going to be challenging us. And Scholz is getting faster on the R1 as well. So
PJ's getting faster too, right? I mean, PJ's getting close, I think.
So when you have something that you're looking for little tiny advantages, you have to think about it really hard. Really hard when you go to the race. Not easy to sit there and go, well, what can we do to make it a little bit better? Another link, another this, another that, you know, a little bit different velocity stacks, get a little more peak power. We're not looking for that. You can't get that 30 horsepower boost, you know, so you're looking for a little bit of, you know, we always talk about how much cut we have with a bike and you know, so they changed the strategy this year from that audible cut based, more throttle based. So throttle management system, or whatever they call it. And so that strategy makes it a little quieter, the bike, and doesn't shake it as much. So you're looking at all things, you try to make the bike better to ride, and see it on the racetrack. So we keep improving it, you know, different swing arm, different linkage, all that stuff is a challenge. Just because you can't throw 30 horsepower at it doesn't mean you don't have challenges elsewhere in the chassis. You know, so that all the stuff we can do, you keep away at it. So it's hard to say we're bored. We definitely don't have enough time to be bored.
So Bearded Jixer, he says, could you please switch to Suzuki so they could be back on the podium? He'll buy you lunch.
I think Bearded Jixer's beard's going to get a little if that happens.
Oh man, that's so funny.
It's going to be old, long, and gray.
Yes. Yeah, like we
used to be Attack Suzuki way back in the day. I mean, that was 3 years, and that was Pridmore, Hayes, you know, all those, that era Rapper, where we had those riders and those. Rapper never rode our Suzuki.
Did he not?
He rode for
Oh,
for
750. He rode the 750, didn't he?
he rode 750, not for us. He
No?
rode for another team. He was very big in the paddock. I thought he rode for guys in Alabama. What do you
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they had the Corona team back then. That's when that Marty Craigle guy rode for too, the Corona team. That's when Walker worked for the Corona team. So anyway, it was fun riding, doing those Suzukis. We won our first race today. We won a couple championships, and so it was fun.
Right on. Well, so what's the you got Road America in a couple weeks? What's the master plan? You got any secret sauce for the engines or anything fancy to stay in the front at
I
Road
think we're
America?
gonna. I think we're gonna keep it business as usual, man. We're not gonna do anything too. We said that at Road Atlanta. We went there with no, finish the first event, which he did. Because we've
Right.
had some back for some reason or another, and
Yeah.
both guys at the first event. Uh, didn't work out for Cameron Peterson, and then didn't work out for Cameron Priest in this race either. Didn't finish both those. So Road America, love to go and have both guys finish 1-2. That'd be my strategy. See what the track gives us in there, the pave, and so I think we'll have a little bit of learning to do in the first session. Try to put Barber hat on and see what we did back to make the bikes get around, and what we got to do for the riders to make sure they're comfortable with the pave. That's going to be where the difference comes, not big horsepower and crazy stuff and doing all those things. I think we're gonna try to keep it simple, stupid.
Right on. Well,
Hmm.
I guess you're in the shop, and then is the truck still back east, or are you?
No, the Yamaha Supercross truck, I think, broke down, so they came and borrowed the tractor, and they're off pulling it to San Diego right now.
Okay.
So yeah, we all kind of work together on that deal.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, then the tractor will come back, and we'll pull that thing over Road America, and the shop, build a couple new engines for Road America, and then yeah, it's racing.
Right on. Well, Richard,
Yeah.
thank you for your time, man. I wish you guys the best of luck at Road America. Kind of wish I was going. I'm a little busy right now doing this whole bicycle thing, so whatever. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, how much more weight you gonna lose, man? You look like you're from Ethiopia lately.
Dude, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm somewhere like I'm pretty steady somewhere between 175 and 180. Like that's
But where
my
where for?
my max.
Yeah, your max. What do you get
Yeah, I
to?
mean, Richard, you've known me for 20 years, man. Like my max is like
You're
in the high
you're
240s.
you're a big tub of shit before I know.
I was a
And
wadded up, yeah, bubble gum, chewed up bubble gum. That's what I look like.
you were pretty big, man.
I
And
was,
now you're sub twos, which is pretty good. I mean, I
yeah,
your butt willow when you came walking in the one time I hadn't seen you for a few. You know,
yeah. Well,
Maybe you know
I,
it,
I
man.
am I am training hard for that San Francisco to LA thing. So I'm gonna ride my bicycle over the course of a week from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and I'm doing a charity thing. I'm raising money for the Arthritis Foundation. So
Mm.
which is perfect for somebody like me who's old and still races motorcycles. But yeah, like I think I've raised $2,600 of the 3,500 I'm supposed to raise, so I'm well on my way there. And I found out from Pirelli today that Pirelli's gonna hook me up with tires for this whole training and the ride and everything, and so it's pretty sweet to have Pirelli not only at my track days company thing, but like also on the bicycle. So my all of my two wheel adventures are Pirelli sponsored now. So it's
It's
pretty
cool.
cool.
Should be
Yeah,
fun.
and
Any to do that triathlon again?
no, I hate swimming. I hate running. Running sucks. I don't ever want to run
Uh,
again. I'm a cyclist. Running is just fuck running. I'm sorry. Just if people do it, it's just not me. And for those of you that want to donate, there's a link in the description of the video. You could click on it, donate, what, 20 bucks, whatever, and try to help me get to that goal of 3,500 bucks. And yeah, that's that.
Well, cool, man. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep doing it. You'll see me at the shop again, and you'll keep making fun of me, say I look like I think Yosef said that I look like a meth head at the shop. I'm like, bro, I have all my teeth. Like, what are you talking about? I don't have any like sores on my face, bro. Come on, what are you talking about? But then again, I could be like the Willow Springs new guy, right? Like the corner worker new guy.
Oh yeah. Those
Yeah,
guys
that's what
out
they call it. Corner worker with all his teeth. You know, the old joke that's like, oh, what do you call a corner worker with all his teeth? The new guy?
New guy.
You know?
New guy, yeah.
But yeah, so right
Big
on,
Willow.
man. Well, I'm going to let you get back to whatever you're doing, and I'll catch you after
Going
Road America.
home,
Oh, yeah?
yeah,
Okay.
and then as soon as I'm done. All right.